Beyak is back, at least it looks that way. The Senate Ethics Committee is calling for Senator Lynn Beyak's suspension to be lifted after she participated in 4 days of education training after posting racist letters about Indigenous people on her website and defending residential schools as a positive experience, if you can believe it. But is a single course, a 4-day course, enough to change posting those racist letters? And how will the ethics report be received by the rest of the Senate? The press gallery is going to weigh in on that. Robert Benzie is the Queen's Park bureau chief with the Toronto Star. Molly Thomas is a reporter with CTV News. And our special guest today is Senator Murray Sinclair, who's also the Ethics Committee chair. Welcome to you all. And good to see you, and I hope your families are well. Senator Sinclair,
Yes.
Obviously always good to have you, sir, on the program. What did you make of the findings that after 4 days, she's ready to be reinstated? Do you accept that?
Well, thank you, Evan, for having me on the panel. As the committee chair, I assisted in the writing of the report, and I stand behind the report. I think it was a good report. I think it indicated what was asked of Senator Beyak was complied with. And the committee's mandate was to report back to the Senate when she did that, and to report on the findings of the Senate ethics officer and the evaluation team, and to make a recommendation. And our unanimous recommendation was that the suspension should be lifted and that she should be allowed to return to the Senate. And I think that it's safe for us to all know that Senator Beyak knows that she's not going to get a third chance. This opportunity that was provided to her to have a second chance to finish an educational program that was intended to bring her up to speed with regard to the true history of this country, and to get her to learn what it was that she had done that was wrong, is now completed. We think it's had its impact, and we think that she should, as a member of the Senate, be allowed to return to her duties.
Molly, I'm going to come back to the senator, but, you know, on the surface, a lot of folks might think this is contrition of convenience. She wants her job. She's been booted out. It's her strike 2. And now suddenly she takes a, 4-day course, and suddenly she's ready to return to a very high-profile, high-paying job. What do you make of this?
Absolutely. Again, like Senator Sinclair said, we have to wait. The spotlight will be on her now. This is the last chance. Listen, I'm the first to rail against racial injustice. I'm the first to speak out about it. But I also think that in these conversations in our country, we have to be ready to accept change as well. We have to be ready to look at people that change their opinions, and look at even forgiveness and in talking about these conversations. This is a racial reckoning that's happening across Canada. If it's done right, thousands of people will change their minds. And I think Senator Beyak can be Exhibit A on this. Is the racism course enough? Time will tell us that. But, we want to see, if one more person of privilege in this country that has a huge position looks at Indigenous people differently, looks at residential schools differently, there is a possibility for change. So I believe strongly in second chances. I have to believe in them, because that's the only way our country can move forward from this conversation, from these places that are really, really difficult for us to look forward to a path forward.
Rob Benzie, what's your make of it? What do you make of this? Is this enough? Should she be welcomed back in the Senate, or does it in some ways diminish the Senate?
Well, I think it's diminished the whole episode. Her antics over the years have diminished the Senate, if that's even possible. Sorry, Senator Sinclair. But I think that I believe, like Molly and the senator believe, in second chances. In this case, I guess it's more than a second chance for Senator Beyak, but it sounds like this will be her last chance. So if she does continue to offend and hurt people with some of the things that she's said in the past publicly, then she will have to be gone from the red chamber. I think it's been a really, really sorry situation for a lot of years. And I've talked to people, Indigenous people, about this, and they're very hurt by some of her statements over the years, and are offended, frankly, that taxpayers paid for those letters to be posted on her website for all those years. And I think that's the thing that's so hurtful. I mean, we are in this country trying to have some sort of reconciliation with our First Nations. It's not gone as well as perhaps it could. But maybe if this 4-day anti-racism sensitivity training helps this senator and maybe convinces someone else along the way not to say or do hurtful or prejudicial things, then it's not a bad thing, I guess.
Senator, can I just return to you? We're in the midst of a global, and certainly here in Canada as well, re-understanding of systemic racism and some very long, systemic, institutionalized issues. And as you know, the Senate has a reputation that has been under tremendous strain. What message does it send that someone who repeatedly defended residential schools, posted those letters, can be welcomed back to such a high-profile job? And it sounds like without any real punishment, but taking a couple courses.
Well, a couple of comments that maybe by way of correction of what you said. First of all, the Senate has not adopted the report, and the Senate is going to participate, I think, in a fulsome debate around this. It's quite conceivable that the Senate may reject our report and the recommendations and throw her out of the chamber. That's possible. In addition to that, you have to remember that it wasn't just attending a committee educational program endorsed by the committee, but it was also she was suspended without pay for a period of almost 6 months in total, and so that's half of her salary. So she's paid financially as well. But more importantly, I think that she was forced to go through a process of acknowledgement and awareness, and brought to task for what it was that she had done, which initially she felt there was nothing wrong about. But towards the end, the evaluators who had pushed her hard on this, and the evaluation team, incidentally, was an excellent team. And I encourage everybody who is aware of what the committee report says to look behind the report and also to look at the appendices to the report, where the evaluators talk about what they said, what they did, how they delivered the program, and their assessment of her participation and her awareness. And those assessors were very thorough and were very professional, and we accepted their view that in their view that she was somebody who had shown true change and that she was capable of performing better, and that they thought that she could perform better and would perform better. And so I think that we have to be aware of that. But what does this say to the public? I hope that one of the messages that comes out of this is to say that reconciliation is going to require us to acknowledge that change is going to have to come about on both sides. I think that Indigenous people have to become aware of what's happened to them and how that's impacted their lives and how that's impacted the way that their governments exist and function. But it's also important for Canadians to realize how it's impacted their lives and how it's impacted the way that they think and how it's impacted the way that they behave. And one of the things that the program that she was put through required of her was for her to understand that she may not have willingly acknowledged she was a racist at the outset, but that when she understood what Canada had done, not just to Indigenous people, but to all of Canada, to all people in Canada, through the public school system, through the social media system, through movies and music and all of that, that the message that was given was that Indigenous people were inferior, that they were dirty, that they were heathens, they were pagans, they were uncivilized. That message was part of her ingrained system, and that she has to start challenging that for herself.
Senator, first of all, as usual, you go above and beyond what most people even can with your depth of understanding and empathy, and that admission that she says, as you say, that she admitted she was a racist, extraordinary. We'll see what the Senate does with this report. But Senator Sinclair, always an honor to have you on the program, sir. I appreciate your perspective as always. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Evan.